We do not know what game to make yet, so in this first devlog we're gonna come up with a game idea for our next big indie game release. Next, because I published 2 games before, Islanders and Will You Snail, and we, because I have a friend with me this time, another co-creator of Islanders. He worked on Superflight, he made the ramp and the block. In short, it's Paul. We decided to team up because we were both a little
traumatized by our solo projects.
We already spent about 6 weeks brainstorming ideas, so now that we're getting started, we have a lot of ideas to choose from. The goal of this video is to choose just one of these ideas using a process called prototyping. When I look at the ideas we have now, I feel relatively equally excited about all of them. Usually what happens when you make a game, and what also happened with my last game, is you have an idea and then you're...
Yeah, exactly.
With that adrenaline rush, you get right into development.
Yeah, it's so healthy to not be that attached to the ideas, I think.
I made some screen recordings every single day, which is awesome because it means you'll get to see our day-by-day progress. I used day 1 to teach myself some geometry nodes in Blender. Every now and then you need to take some time to learn a new technology, and what better time to do that than the beginning of a new project. I also made a prototype for a strategy game about growing plants. In most base building games you build something like cities, so I thought it might be interesting to flip that on its head and to build something natural for once. Day 2 I got to see some first screenshots for the card game prototype Paul was working on. I kept working on my Blender skills for a bit and then of course made another little prototype. So every time you grab a flower, it'll be a small mutation from the flower you grabbed before. I'm struggling a bit with what the objective of this could be, but it's definitely quite fun to play around with. This is Thronefall, our card-based kingdom management game. You have 3 advisors or heroes and you have to assign them to different tasks. And I, inspired by my last prototype, made a game about golfing plants. Plants have a small chance to evolve, so you can basically create an entire ecosystem starting with just 1 plant. Okay, this is day 4, and as you can see, on an aim assist line now. Aha, there we go. Now we got the round counter in the top right, so we can see how many more shots we got. Is there anything we're doing different about prototyping this time around? I guess there is, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of things actually. First thing would be that we worked on the ideas for a comparatively long time in our heads before starting to actually prototyping them. Like, we have now a very structured approach to prototyping. We already thought about what are the questions that we want to answer with the prototypes.
So for example, for our Kingdom Manager prototype, we wanted to figure out if the simple interaction of dragging characters around was fun enough to make a full game. And the interaction definitely was. There were just some gameplay problems, it was lacking some depth, and I figured an analog prototype might be very efficient to experiment with this. Each character has its own deck to face those challenges. For example, Sir Marcus has a deck containing a faith card with 2 faith and a faith card with 3 faith and 1 failure card. We have the guy who might be plotting against us and the need to build a new town, which would cost us 1 gold. And here's a shop terrible monster. See what happens is I'll just draw a random card from this deck. What do we have? Oh no, we have a failure. Now we turn the card around and we failed. That means we get a strike on this region, symbolized by a little red marker. Blah 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 blah. I would say it worked really well. I tested it with a couple of different people and most of them found it pretty fun. It made for some fun stories, had some good storytelling components. Basically a deck building game where you build 3 decks at once. Alright, we got week 2, day 5, and I'm playing around with random terrain generation, and I don't know, it gave me some ideas for some other algorithms I want to try. We had some ideas for an open world racing game and also for a mountain climbing game, both of which would have required some terrain generation. So this was basically a technical prototype, seeing if we can pull it off from a technical perspective. As I'm the one who made all of the screen recordings, you can see that there's a bit of a false bias here where it really looks like I worked a lot harder than Paul, which is definitely not the case. In the evening we went through some of Paul's old prototypes, which were very inspiring as well. For example, we found this gem here where you parkour around trying to pick up collectibles. Especially the camera perspective and scale of things was feeling quite unique and not like something you see in a game every day. To me, it felt fairly encouraging that I basically managed to write a full procedural terrain editor in more or less just 2 days. So that gave us a go for our game ideas that needed open world level generation. Now, for example, you can imagine an open world racing game where you race through a procedurally generated landscape, or a chill rock climbing game where you get to explore and climb random mountains. Paul had another prototype ready, a mixture of turn-based and real-time strategy. You get to plan out your move and then you see it being executed. It played surprisingly well. It was a fairly fun puzzle game. Would you say you can see any tendencies in the ideas we collected so far?
I was actually surprised by the variety of things we came up with. Probably what they all have in common is that they are rather small experiences still.
So many little notes. Wow, looks like a crazy master plan kind of thing. Our problem was definitely more that we had too many ideas, not too little. And it seems like having a bit of a back catalog of old prototypes definitely helps as well. This is another one from Paul, where you climb a mountain in this juicy top-down perspective, and it inspired the prototype I made the next day. Because I basically made the online multiplayer version of this game. You climb a mountain together and you have to collaborate to reach the top. The main mechanic is that you can place these hooks and then teleport yourself and your partner there. Macht tatsächlich schon Bock irgendwie.
Finde ich auch. Einfach dieses Koop-Bergsteigen ist irgendwie cool.
Paul in the meanwhile reworked my plant spreader prototype and made it look a lot nicer. Here you can really see how effective these little prototyping bursts are. We went from this to this to this to this in just a couple of days. My last game took me 4 years to make, so I really hope that's not gonna be the case this time around. It's a very unconventional platformer where an AI predicts your movement. I believe the weekend this video comes out, it's still on sale on Steam, so now's a better time than ever to play it. And of course, play really means buy it on Steam. It's a fantastic way to support my work, and it also allows me to hire people to, for example, keep working on a level editor. It's also available on Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. You get a cool game, I get to keep making videos and games for you. It's a win-win, so go check it out. For our new game, it was now time to come to a decision. What will be our next big game project? We initially started into this with 9 killer game ideas we felt very confident in. We talked about them a lot, so we were able to eliminate 3 of them right out of the gate. For the plant game idea, we tried really hard to make it work. The overall vibe and appeal of this were just so good already. Unfortunately, there were some problems with the objective and the overall game loop. So bada boom, bada bam, it's eliminated. The path drawing game was the other way around. It would have made for a great puzzle game, but there weren't really any interesting design challenges left to solve. So in the end, it didn't really interest us anymore. Bam, and it's eliminated. For the open world stuff, we figured out, sure, we can generate terrain, but can we make it look good? Can we make it look appealing? And as we don't have a dedicated artist in our team this time, we had to be honest with ourselves. With all of the artwork that has to be done here, this doesn't play into our strengths, so it's eliminated. I mostly shine in game system design and balancing. Paul mostly shines in user experience and user interface design. For the climbing game, the gameplay was pretty much solved and figured out, so all that would have been left to do is level design and set dressing. We really would have needed our friend Friedemann for this project, who, for example, made all of the art for Islanders, but he's busy making a game called Pizza Possum, so that means climbing game idea is eliminated. Then there was also the online multiplayer version of this game. We could have gone for a simpler, more abstract art style, but in the end we chickened out because it still comes with some difficult art challenges, plus the multiplayer challenges on top of that. It's eliminated. Maybe this is something for a future project. The Kingdom Manager card game is very gameplay and system heavy, very UI heavy, so it plays into our strengths really well. We also thought people like the medieval setting, people like card games, and we had a really interesting card game that didn't rely purely on violence. It makes for some really cool stories where the personality of your characters is kind of represented by their decks. So bam, jackpot. This is the game we wanted to make, but spoiler warning, things did not turn out the way we expected at all. Paul and me are finally ready to start sharing what we've secretly been working on. We're now 61 days into this project and we can't wait to catch you up on all the crazy stuff that has happened so far. Subscribe and watch the next video. See ya.